Hello, welcome to a new video. Can you guys believe it? Because I don't even know if I can.
This is editing Fat Cow. Yes, I've appeared quite early, but trigger warning. I was going to approach this video with humour, my normal way, and it devolved into something quite serious and something I find very important. So, if you are of a sensitive disposition or are triggered by discussions of mental health, I would strongly advise you to proceed with caution and to take care of yourself, because our mental health is the most valuable gift we're given, and it needs to be protected at all costs. Thank you for watching the video.
I feel like there's so much that I need to explain and talk to you guys about, and it's just too much to do in one video. I think specifically for this video, I shouldn't have to explain that I'm having mental health issues. I really am. And I look back at a year ago, and I was also having pretty bad mental health issues around this time of year. So I told myself this time, okay, Amberlynn, you feel yourself slowly getting into a weird, depressed headspace. And normally I would share that with YouTube. And I told myself, I'm just going to disappear instead. And I shouldn't have done that. I know I shouldn't have.
Amberlynn, I want you to listen if you see this. How you protect your mental health is entirely up to you. If your reaction to feeling your mental health decline is to disappear without explanation, then so be it. You owe nobody an explanation for how you protect your mental health.
And I think what might have also triggered it so hard is I have been in a high, when you first fall in love and things are so good and you're going out and you're hanging out with friends and you're doing things that you don't normally do, and you're just literally having the time of your life and you're so happy, and mental health takes away that high, that super high happiness and just that great feeling. When that was taken from me, it was I hit like a rock. I hit a bottom. And I have done so much crying. I am with Tommy. I am with someone that I love. But I feel so depressed. And it's it's not fair, because it's I'm getting people on Instagram, because I was doing these Q&As on there. I was getting people on there saying if you're so happy with Tommy, then why are you depressed? Two things can coexist at the same time.
So here's the thing with mental illness and depression. It doesn't care whether you're in a good spot or not. It doesn't give a shit that you're in love. It doesn't care if you've just met the love of your fucking life. It doesn't care. It doesn't give a shit. It doesn't sneak up behind you one day, tap you on the shoulder, and then go, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're having a good time. I'll come back later." No, depression doesn't give a shit about what's going on in your life. It's going to arrive whether you fucking want it or not. Obviously you don't want it, but you get what I'm saying.
I just feel mental health isn't black and white, and it was just easier for me to live without filming my life for thousands and thousands and thousands of people. it felt safer to me to just disappear. And I do slowly feel myself getting like out of this like weird depressed headspace. I do feel that. And it's just like I have BPD, and that's been like hectic on like it's just been hectic. It's not fair that like I have these things while I'm trying to just like be happy.
No, it's not fair. But that's just how life is. Not fair. Nobody's happy about having mental health issues. Nobody wants legitimate mental health issues. But we don't always get what we want.
And just live. Like it's not fair. And there's only really one thing I can do, and that is go to therapy. But for some reason I'm so scared to go to therapy for like BPD.
Borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is defined by having very unstable moods, being very impulsive in your behaviours, and very volatile relationships. There is no cure for BPD. The goal of any treatment is to basically reduce the symptoms and to improve the quality of life. Medication isn't the first line of treatment with BPD, and therapy is often the go-to treatment. However, by its very nature, people with BPD have a lot of trouble feeling comfortable and establishing trust with their therapists.
I don't know what it is, but something about it really freaking scares me.
One of the more effective therapies is dialectical behavioural therapy. Basically, dialectical being the relationship and interaction between conflicting ideas. The aim of DBT is to counteract the symptoms and maladaptive behaviours of BPD and replace them with healthier coping skills. Common areas for treatment are having an unstable sense of self, chaotic relationships, fear of abandonment, emotional liability, and impulsivity. One of the reasons why people with BPD find therapy so difficult is because they have to be so vulnerable and open and honest with basically an individual they don't necessarily feel they have a bond with or who they would trust. It's a very vulnerable and humbling experience for anybody with any mental disorders, and therapy has a tendency to make a person feel emotionally raw and emotionally very vulnerable. It's never a pleasant experience. It is very difficult, and it is something you have to work through in order to get to the other side. And if you have issues with not liking the feeling of discomfort or not being willing to work through discomfort, therapy would prove to be a very difficult experience for some individuals. Additionally, therapy requires you to look into your past and to identify the reasons, the events, the people that have led you to come to this point. Basically, what has caused or what has influenced or affected your mental illness and your state of mind. Obviously, by the very nature of the fact that you have developed mental illnesses, probably down to trauma, means that the idea in itself of facing and discussing and almost reliving these events make therapy a very difficult thing to willingly participate in, because the majority of people's coping mechanisms with regards to trauma and traumatic events is to push them to the back of their mind and forget them and not face them.
And I think it's because it's like, it's almost as if it's like truly, truly confirming. Like, Amberlynn, you got the BPD. It's like, yeah, I was diagnosed. I experience BPD things almost daily. I feel it. I'm aware. Like, I'm cognizant of it and I have to deal with it. But it's like going to therapy for it, like having to like stare at it, talk about it. It's just surreal and it's not something I want to do.
See, the thing is, you can have something, be it a mental disorder, a physical disability, an issue of some kind. But just because you know you have it doesn't mean you've accepted the fact you have it. You can know something and still deny its existence in some way. Now, I have fibromyalgia. It has greatly affected my quality of life and my ability to do stuff. In itself, my fibromyalgia is a disability. Now, I was diagnosed with this 12 years ago, but it wasn't until 5 years ago I could finally admit to myself, shit, I'm disabled. It was a very, very difficult idea to come to terms with and to accept, because it was not how I saw myself. It was a very difficult thing to admit that my body basically does not allow me to function as a healthy human being anymore, and that my ability to do stuff has been greatly compromised and reduced. Much in the same way as if you had a mental disorder such as BPD, that affects your quality of life and your ability to function as a healthy individual would be very difficult to accept as well.
Not something I want to experience, but it's like, that doesn't matter. It's something that I have to do. And I'm not sure when I'm going to be doing it, but it has to happen because I don't know. Is this seasonal depression? Now I don't know. Mental health is like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's not always understood. And I'm telling you guys, I have had some breakdowns, like true breakdowns. And this is exactly how I felt a year ago. Like, I don't know if it's like the change in weather, because there is a such thing as like seasonal depression. I don't know if that's like what's happening to me. I don't know. I know that like, I don't want to be medicated. I don't want to be medicated. I was medicated for majority of my life.
I can't speak for anybody else apart from myself and my experiences. But I was diagnosed with depression in my early 20s and was given Prozac, which initially was an awful experience because it felt like a chemical lobotomy. I was incapable of feeling an emotion at all. But a few experiments with various prescription medications, we settled on sertraline, which has proved to be very effective. But the reason I have depression isn't a reason at all, in terms of nothing particular happens for me to have a depressive episode. I basically do not have a brain that makes enough serotonin. It is literally a chemical imbalance and doesn't need a reason to happen. Obviously, when things bad happen, it can aggravate the depression, give it a nudge, give it some encouragement, for want of a better word. But by itself, my depression can come and go as it pleases, depending on what happy chemicals my brain decides to make on any given day. Consequently, the best treatment for me is to regulate and maintain the levels of serotonin in my brain chemically. Much as if you had a vitamin deficiency, you would take vitamins. This is exactly the same thing. I have a body that doesn't make a certain thing that it needs, therefore I have store-bought chemicals instead. Nothing to be ashamed about. It's just one of those things. My brain, my wonderfully dysfunctional brain that just doesn't want to fit into any mould, does its own thing, and sometimes it needs help.
So I've been in and out of medicine my whole life, and I was taking Lamictal for 5 years because I was diagnosed bipolar years and years ago. So I was taking Lamictal for that, and I don't ever want to be put on medicine. So it's like with BPD and seasonal depression, like I know some people take meds for seasonal depression. I get that. Me, I kind of just like wing it.
Well, the thing is, Amber, you haven't been diagnosed with seasonal depression. You've just assumed, because you've had 2 winters consecutively where you've been depressed. Now, you could argue that this current depression could have been encouraged. For some reason, I cannot think of the appropriate word, because of your move. Now, I'm saying move in brackets because it's not confirmed, but you have changed location, and out of the life events that are listed as being the most stressful, moving is one of those in the top 5. The others being death, divorce, and cannot remember. Sorry, I'll look it up. I'll come back to it. Death of a loved one, divorce or marital separation, moving home, major illness or injury, and job loss or retirement. Seasonal depression is treated with light therapy, actually, not medication at all, unless it is severe. So basically, if you suspect you have seasonal depression, you get yourself a UV light and you sit in front of it for about 10 minutes a day. Not to downplay seasonal depression, but the treatments available will do you no harm whatsoever if you wanted to give them a go. Light therapy. Basically replacing the sun for a little bit. As for your BPD, as I said previously, medication isn't the go-to treatment for BPD, so you don't actually have to worry about that.
And instead of like complaining about it, I just disappeared because I knew that's what was going to happen. I was going to come on here and be like, I am so fucking happy with Tommy, but I am depressed because I am going through a depression that I seem to go through every single year. And then with BPD, it's like there are medicines that can like help with like your mood. Like there's nothing that can like heal a BPD. Like you're not going to like be healed with medicine. It's not going to happen.
Correct. But unfortunately, you are not going to be healed by anything because BPD is chronic. It cannot be healed. It is managed. And it is managed by therapy, and you will have to commit to the therapy and see it through to its end. and then realistically understand that there will be times throughout your life you will have to return to therapy. It sucks. It's horrible. It's just something you're going to have to accept as being a part of who you are.
I will say that like Lamictal did help with my BPD as well.
Lamictal is a drug that is used for seizures in epilepsy and bipolar disorder. Oddly enough, I also take a medication for the treatment of seizures in epileptics, despite not having epilepsy, which is propranolol. And I am given propranolol because of anxiety. Initially, as a treatment for panic attacks. I was told to take a certain amount should a panic attack be oncoming, and to take a regular dose of propranolol to prevent the onset of panic attacks at all. My panic attacks did end. The anxiety didn't, but the panic attacks did. After I left my ex. So that's a bit of a coincidence, I don't think.
I'm not going to lie, but I don't want to be medicated. And I think that's a personal choice, and that's okay.
Yes, it's a personal choice. It's your body. Nobody can make you. And it is okay. And it just so happens that, again, medication isn't the go-to treatment for BPD, so it's actually not something you should concern yourself with.
So it's easier for me to say I don't want to be medicated, so I don't have the, what am I going to say? I don't have the option to complain, which I really do. It's like, it's no one's fault that they have mental illness.
That is 100% correct. It is nobody's fault they have mental illness. We have to remove the stigma. It is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't make somebody a lesser person. In varying degrees, I would argue we all have a little something. The brain is a complex organ that has so many working parts. It is not a surprise when parts of it go wrong. Now here's the thing. There is no shame in having a mental illness or disorder. There is no shame in having depression or anxiety. And we have to remove the stigma that surrounds mental health. And there is no shame in needing medication. I need to take sertraline because my brain literally does not make the chemical that I need. There is no shame in seeking therapy. It doesn't mean that you are a weak individual or you have a deficit in your personality, or that it's admitting to being less than. I've known a person, okay, let's just say it as it is. I've known a person that thought that therapy was stressful, that therapy was something only really weak individuals would take, and that in order to need therapy it would be shameful, and that therapy was just a stupid thing that people did when they had a flaw in their character. No prizes for guessing who I'm talking about. I have mentioned this raging narcissist a few times. But my mental issues, problems, diagnoses, etc., were looked down upon immensely by this individual as an indication of my inferiority, for want of a better phrase. And we have to stop looking at people who are having problems and struggles in this way. They are a faultless condition, and they are devastating, or can be devastating, to an individual, and are made more devastating when they are disregarded or looked down on by other people. My depression is just something I have. Genetic, I don't know. It's just something I have. My anxiety developed as a result of being in an abusive relationship. And even though that is over, I am still plagued by anxiety. It has destroyed, well, not destroyed, obviously, I'm still functional, but it has debilitated me and greatly reduced my quality of life. And there is no shame in that, exactly as there is no shame in the fact I was in the relationship in the first place. Now, it pains me that people don't feel like they can be open about their struggles, or feel like they have no one to talk to, or feel like they're going to be judged. We are flesh and blood and chemicals and multitudes of many things, and we go wrong, for want of a better phrase. We are not infallible. We are not titanium. We are not Iron Man. We are not immortal. We are just blobs of living matter that are vulnerable to so many things, which is getting worse as we develop technologically. And to see a mental illness or condition as something that makes somebody inferior or less than or even inhuman is so inhumane. It's inhumane. If somebody was dying of something, you don't blame them for having the disease. If a child had leukemia, you wouldn't blame them for having leukemia. If a parent develops Alzheimer's, you don't blame them for developing Alzheimer's. So why are we so quick to blame people with mental illnesses and disorders for getting them? We have to be kinder people. We have to be more open-minded. We have to be more accepting and tolerant and empathetic, because this shit's going to destroy us. Collectively, it's going to destroy us.